everybody. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Kristen, for that wonderful introduction. As already mentioned, my name is Erin Ali, and I'm the product manager here on the extensions team. And as also mentioned, I focus on discovery and management, and that's what I'm here to talk to you all about today. So I'm going to jump in. I want to cover discovery for extensions in 3 different ways. The first way is capturing a streamer's attention with our existing discovery features that you can take control of. Second, we're also going to talk about ways to delight streamers all the way to activating your extension on their channel. And last, we're also going to give you a few tools and a few different ways to optimize once you've also released your extension. So the first thing we're going to talk about, like I mentioned, is discovery features, what we already have available today. We talked to streamers and found out that when they reach the extension manager, they're normally there to window shop. They're not actually there to look for that one specific extension. And because of that, the first thing I want to talk about is categories. In June of this year, we launched categories to help streamers really get a chunk-size view of extensions available to them based on use type. And so when you're building your extension, what you really want to consider is what is that use type and what do I fit into? If you're a developer who has multiple use cases and feel like you can fit into many of these, I'd recommend picking the first one that you think works and really consider changing it up and taking a look at your insights in the future to see what you might see a lift in. I will acknowledge that it does take a version upload to change your category. That's can be cumbersome. We totally get it, and we want to make it better for you all in the future. Bear with us. That's something we're looking to take care of. The next thing I want to talk to you all about is the discovery image. So as mentioned, when streamers are window shopping, this is going to be your first impression for them. What is your extension? How can you communicate what that is? And so a few guidelines I have for you today are to really avoid too much detail. Remember, it's a 300 by 200 PNG file. And so because of that, you want to really communicate what that extension is. A few examples here that I'd love to call out are examples like schedule by Layer 1. They went and showed off just a simple look of what their extension is. Twitter timeline showed a subset of that, but also uses branding. Twitch Picks is one of my favorite, just because it actually makes a really cute quip in it related to what their extension is. And also, I want to recommend to everybody that you should test it in dark and light mode, because you'll have streamers that are looking at the extension manager in both views. Just kind of make sure that it pops in both different views. So the next thing I want to talk about is the details page. This is probably one of the most important things to really iterate on and look to getting right. And the reason I say that is there's traffic that's coming to this location from both channel pages and from the extension manager. So what that means for you is that you're getting streamers who may or may not have seen a live example of how your extension works. And what you really want to do is consider giving them the best context as possible so they have confidence in your extension so they can decide that they want to get it on their channel. So first thing we're going to talk about is screenshots. I love looking at screenshots. This gives me a ton of view of like what the extension can be. And I want to recommend to you really considering showing what the extension looks like. Show what it looks like on a channel page. Show how it looks in the video stream. What PUBG Contraband did here is they actually show their panel extension in both light and dark mode. This is really great because for streamers, it's really important to them that their community actually can see this in a great way in whatever view they want. And they know that their community is looking in both light and dark mode. Additionally, what PUBG Contraband does, which you could also consider, is showing broadcaster configuration. And so what configuration is, for those of you who might not have built an extension already, is this is the step that streamers do in terms of setting up their extension so that when they go live with it, they have everything set up. So imagine the Destiny 2 extension having to add certain information to make sure that your gear is showing. Showing them the configuration can give them a little bit more idea of what's expected next of them. OK, so for the next example here with Spotify Recently Played, another thing to consider for your extension is if you have different views on context. And what I mean by that is, depending on what is happening with your extension and what it might look like at certain times, you can really consider showing this off as well. Spotify recently played actually shows an offline view because their extension only works when the streamer is active. And by showing what it looks like in offline, they're also showing consideration for what that's going to look like. And in screenshots, don't worry about captions. Like, consider using captions as well, just to give a little bit more context. For those of you who are Bits extensions developers, I also really want you to consider showing how bits are used within your extension. Affiliates and partners are the streamers that you're targeting in order to use the extension at this point, and to not show them how bits are being used is going to be a risk for them to take because they're not entirely sure how to engage with their community with your extension. And so because of that, like sound alerts, they show where bits are used in their extension. I'd also mention that we don't currently have video support right now for details pages. Again, that is definitely something in the future that we want to bring to details pages and for you developers. But right now, what we do have is GIF support. So that is something to consider. I definitely wouldn't recommend every image be a GIF and animated for streamers to look at, but maybe consider using one. And a great complement to these screenshots is the description. So the ability to provide context on what the extension is and what value it brings to streamers. So some things here that I would recommend that everyone consider is writing out what the extension does. Include different requirements for the streamer, note how bits are used, and also note the value that it brings to both the streamer and to the community. An example here by Live Emotes, I won't read it, but I'll leave it up here for you to take a look at. They really note a couple of use cases here that streamers might care about. Streamers know that they have some engaged users, and they know that they might also have lurkers. This is something that Live Emotes actually calls out. They also call out here that there's a way for streamers to hide the visibility of these. They acknowledge that this might be something somebody doesn't want to use, but they still give you the opportunity to show it if you want to. Pretzel Rocks on request is a great example of a description where additional context is provided and additional overhead on the streamer is asked of. We know that when you're building an extension, you might need more info in terms of you might require an account. You might require additional software. And because of that, being really upfront with streamers about those expectations will help enable that they are not surprised later. And so Pretzel Rocks gives a really great example where they just state it out loud, like, we have an account that we require for this to work. So let's say a streamer has decided to install your extension. For those of you who may or may not be aware, the steps for a streamer to get extensions live on their channel, there's 3 of them. So the first one is installing it. The next step is configuration or setting up their extension. And then lastly is activation. While this is a standard flow for us at Twitch right now, the configuration step for you as developers is truly what you can control in terms of what you're asking from the streamer. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how to help optimize that. So the first thing is doing the work for them. If you attended the panel earlier this morning, you might have heard attendees and people talking about, they already have a lot that they have to do. So trying to do as much as possible and making it as easy as possible for them to get through to configuration is really important, and is a great selling point. This might be a page that only the streamer sees and none of the viewers will see for your extension, but it's actually one of the most important. The Destiny 2 overlay does a really great job with considering what inputs they need of streamers and also terminology. A great example here is they assume that those of you who are playing Destiny 2 actually will know which network that they're playing on, and when they select which network, what their gamer handle is. So the example I have up here is I selected BattleNet, and I entered my battle tag. That is definitely not my real battle tag, but if you want to play later, come find me after. Also, if you provide an extension for streamers that have a baseline set of requirements and then you have optional requirements where it just adds a little bit more detail for them, make sure that's really clear to them. The WoW Armory extension asks really only for your character information, but allows you to also add as a streamer your guild ranking and more info. And so when you're asking for that information, make it clear what the baseline expectations are and also what's optional for them. And then lastly on configuration, what I want to note too is required configuration. This is something that we at Twitch provide as an option for developers when they're building their extensions. What this primarily means is that if you want to ensure that they've gone through the necessary configuration of your extension before going live with it, you can create certain parameters around required configuration to enable the ability for them to activate. What this might help prevent is that if they install and activate your extension without configuring it, you might find that your extension looks broken. This is something we want to help avoid, and we want to continue to build trust with our streamers. And this is something that isn't mandatory, but is something to maybe consider when you are building your extension. The other thing I want to say is to test as often as you can. Test every version you build, and test as your customer. Put yourself in the mindset of the streamer. Who are you building for? If you're building a bits-enabled extension, put yourself in the mindset of an affiliate or partner. What is it that they are going to be looking for? What are the assumptions you can make? And how can you ensure that you always catch those test cases? You are the last line of defense for your extension before a streamer might find those bugs for you. And this is something that I cannot stress enough. We are planning to have a starter checklist that's a more generic set of items to really consider when you're testing your extension, and we're looking to put it on dev documentation within the next couple of weeks. But for those of you who want to take a look at it, we'll be posting it soon. And in addition to testing on your own, really consider recruiting a friend to help you test. If you have friends that actually fit the streamer that you are building for, consider asking them. We have the testing account list where you can add other accounts and ask them to be able to see your extension on a channel page. This will help ensure that you kind of share the load with a friend. It'll also maybe find you bugs that you didn't consider. And so really consider looking at this. You can find it on the dev console where you build and set up your extension metadata. OK, so you've built your extension. Streamers are installing it. They're loving it. You are really excited. You feel like it's a really great extension. And you want to continue to get it out there. There's a couple of additional tools that I want to make sure everyone here is aware of that you can try to take advantage of in the future. So the first thing here is developer insights. Kristen and the team for Insights have been doing a knockout job on trying to continue adding more data that's accessible to developers, and they've only just begun. For extensions, we do provide some information at the time, and we're continuing to look at providing more. So I'd really encourage you to go to your dev console once you've released an extension and take a look. We have it available for CSV download, and around, I think it's about 24 hours once you've released your extension and it's live, you can expect to start seeing that CSV download button show up. Additionally, as mentioned this morning, we launched featured content. This is something where we can help showcase really great extensions to our streamers and help them find extensions that truly meet their and their community needs. If you think that your extension is something that should be featured and you think it's really cool, has a really unique perspective, let us know on Twitch Dev on Twitter. Hit us up. We have people that are listening on that channel and looking for really great new examples of extensions. And the other thing I want to mention is, just like we said in the keynote, we are here and building for you. There is so much more that we are trying to bring to the discovery experience. There's so much more that we want to help you out with, and we've only just begun. A couple of examples here of what we're looking to build over the next year are things like bringing installation and activation to the channel page. So for streamers who are trying to edit their panels, they can easily find extensions they want, get it on their channel page, and be ready to go without having to go to the extension manager. Like I mentioned before, we're also looking to improve detail pages, giving you markup so you can get some of that, the look that you're going for, or providing video. For those of you who are developers who also built extensions already and don't actually have configuration for your streamers, we understand that it's a problem that they are looking at configuration when there's none necessary. And so one of the things we also want to do is eliminate that as a requirement, enabling them to be able to get to activation much, much faster. And that's only a subset of what we're looking to do. So to recap pretty much for everyone here today, really look at our discovery features and continue iterating on them as they come online. Use what you can today and continue to update as necessary. Iterate on your configuration. Try to get through that flow over and over. Have someone test it yourself, and really try to embody the streamer you're building for when you're doing it. And also, once you feel like you have a great extension, reach out to us, use your insights, and continue building awesome extensions.